Hey everyone, welcome to the Current Case Podcast. We're a group of four friends discussing the latest current events as they apply to our everyday lives. From foreign policy to local events, we cover it all as best we can in a manner not restrained by the bias of the big media corporations. We may not always agree with each other on certain topics, but that is what makes it all the more interesting. Being able to sit down and have a civil conversation on even the most controversial topics is a necessity for a better society.
Welcome to 2023, Season 2 of the Current Case Podcast. So,
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Got some big changes ahead of us for Season 2. First, our whole format right now is very different because we're actually looking at each other instead of looking at each other through a screen. So this might be a little bit more interesting, I would say, because we can actually see our facial expressions and react to each other in real time instead of over glitchy Twitch and stuff. So also we'll have the same mic quality as well, so we won't have random background noise.
Yeah, gone are the days of trying to adjust different mic settings and getting audio in. So hopefully this just makes a better listening experience for all of you at home.
Yeah, exactly. And also another thing we're hoping to do for Season 2 here is bring in some guest stars. Probably start off with some friends as well. Of course, the Patreon is up. I know that's one of the rewards. Pricey, but if you ever want to participate, that is an option. But that'll be happening, I think, later on in the season. We'll start bringing on some of our friends, some outside people, get into contact, and just talk and discuss whatever happens this year. So I guess before we get into it, how were you guys' holiday breaks? Anything fun happen?
I just chilled. It's as simple as that. Spent some time with family. Didn't work too hard. You know how it is. Just chilled.
Yeah, playing Fortnite, Victory Royales.
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, my holiday season was pretty quiet as well. Perhaps the biggest highlight for me was a few days ago where I went to visit my extended family, having a big gathering at my grandparents' house. That's something that we do every year. Get together, discuss everything that's happened to us. But overall, aside from work, it's been pretty much all quiet on the Western Front for me.
Yeah, very true. Going back to Cameron and Fortnite, he actually got us into Fortnite. Never played one time a couple of years ago, back 2018. I was like, this is stupid, but we actually sat down and played. We actually got 10 Victory Royales, I think is our number right now, 4 in a row. It's our record.
Yeah, good stuff. You know, it's always better with friends.
That fucking fridge, man. What the hell?
Moving on.
Yeah, so it's been fun on my end. We had a big New Year's ping pong tournament. Ohio State game was on as well. We're all from Ohio, so we're trying to watch the game at the same time. It was pretty depressing. They missed a kick right at the ball drop.
I mean, how do you miss that badly? I mean, that was way off to the left. Ohio State, what were you thinking?
Just nerves, I guess. If you win, I mean, kicker is probably the most stressful position because it's either you win the game for them or you're an absolute failure. So it's no in between there.
Yeah, not to mention the circumstances of that game, particularly in the late stages. It was kind of pretty much the most stressful sort of situation you can imagine in football. Or your opponent's literally 1 point ahead of you and you have to score if you want to win now, or else it's all over.
Exactly. So that was depressing to see. But speaking of football, so this past Monday, the Bengals hosted the Buffalo Bills. And of course, I'm sure everybody by now has seen that tragic injury that the Bills player Damar Hamlin received during that game. Of course, he got hit in the chest. It was 5 minutes into the first quarter. Stood up after getting hit and then just completely collapsed on the field. And medical crew rushed out right away to assist him. I think CPR was administered for about 10 minutes, and then he was taken off to UC Hospital. So as of right now, there's a couple updates. I'll just state this quickly. Of course, we can talk about what the NFL is doing to address this or what maybe they should do to address this. But as of right now, this was earlier today. They said his condition is improving, so that's good. They said his vitals have stabilized. The doctors didn't go specifically into his improvements. All they said is that he is at least getting better. I assume they'll have more updates within the coming days I'd say.
Good to hear. Hopefully he makes a full recovery.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all hoping for here.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy when you have something like that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch sports personally, but even to a non-sports watcher, you see something like this and it's like really not good. So, hopefully he makes a full recovery. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm a big sports fan. I love football specifically. Love NFL, love college. So, I mean, I've seen nasty hits on the field before. And the last one I remember specifically was a Pittsburgh player, also playing Cincinnati, was Ryan Shazier. He got paralyzed in the middle of the game. And then, of course, they had to cart him off, ambulance, kind of somewhat similar. Of course, he was conscious during that. They did resume the game. I think it was delayed for about like a half hour to an hour or so. Of course, this game they called off. There's a bunch of like mixed thoughts going around. Apparently, there was a 5-minute rule because the NFL didn't really have proper protocol for this. They're like just following the book. Like technically, after a delay, you're supposed to resume after 5 minutes, but the coaches, players, they're too kind of shocked to continue, and they didn't want to play anyways. So the NFL called off the game. And I think the higher ups, I think they were just as traumatized or devastated by what happened. So I don't think they would force the players to actually play the game that night.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a good look for the NFL, especially if you are forcing other players to resume after such a tragic incident on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think they made the right call just by scrapping the game that night.
Yeah.
And probably saved themselves a lot of PR issues as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think something else to kind of consider is how often does something like this usually happen? Is like, how often does someone get cardiac arrest because of a nasty blow they received playing football like that? I think this may be a first-time scenario for the NFL. I mean, I'm no expert on this. I don't typically watch football all that often, but it sounds like to me this is kind of like a first-of-its-kind incident in the NFL's history. So I think this may be something that may require some additional rules to be written in and codified in order to basically address this if it does end up happening in the future, however slim it might be, statistically speaking.
I mean, it was a very, very close incident to having a player die on the field. Like, he was hit, went into cardiac arrest, and, if those medical personnel didn't intervene in the way that they did, unfortunately, Hamlin may have died right there. And how would they have handled that? It's not a good look for the NFL. It's not a good look for either of the teams. Mm-hmm. But do they have a protocol for stuff like this? And if so, was it followed?
Right. I mean, I know, Ashton, as you said, NFL-wise, I actually don't think this has happened before, like an injury this serious, surprisingly. I mean, there's definitely been incidents where players have had to be carted off the field and taken to the hospital. But I know this has happened in other sports, so I think soccer, I've heard back in like 2020, I forget. It wasn't in the United States, but there was a player who got hit in the chest and also in the cardiac arrest. And then he did regain consciousness like before he was carted out of the field. So they did resume the game right after when they saw he was most likely going to be all right. And I heard he did make a full recovery and went back into the field after. But, of course, this is a first time, I think, for the NFL. So they're kind of just really trying to see what's going to work. They've already said that the Bills-Bengals game will not resume this week. So now, of course, it's almost playoff time as well. The wild card weekend set, I think, 2 weeks from now. This upcoming weekend's the last weekend, week 18. So this is going to be like whole new territory for them to figure out what to do, because the Bills-Bengals game, had a lot of, or will have a lot of impact on the AFC seeding. So the game probably will have to be played eventually, unless they either tie it or just cancel it altogether, which, if you do that, that's going to impact the other AFC teams and their seeding as well. So big question is what you do now.
Yeah, there's a lot of implications this has for the NFL moving forward from here. Like I said before, it's really not good what happened to this guy, and I hope he makes a full recovery. But the whole NFL cannot come to a screeching halt because one player got injured. You know what I mean? Going to be interesting to see what comes out of this, how they're going to handle it. I guess it's the majority opinion that they did the right thing in not continuing the game. And I don't really know how I feel about that. I think, it's kind of a case-by-case thing when a player gets injured, whether or not you continue the game. And while I think maybe halting the game that night was probably the right call, they probably should, resume sometime in the near future. They shouldn't wait super long for it because the entire NFL can't come to a halt because one person got injured. And even if you look at other places, like just regular jobs, sometimes you'll have a coworker pass away. You're usually still expected to come into work unless you're like really close to them, So, is this different? Maybe because it's professional sports, but that's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think on a similar note, bit of a more extreme example, but 1972, I remember hearing that there was during the Munich Olympics, there was a terrorist incident in which basically saw the Israeli team taken hostage and effectively executed by those said terrorists. A bit of an extreme example, but I think, if I recall correctly, the games went on even after that tragedy, so kind of a similar vein there.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of whatever else happens, I think we can all hope that something like what happened, this sort of injury doesn't happen again, at least not very often.
For sure.
I actually saw today Biden was asked because he went to visit Hamlin's parents and talk to them. He actually asked, is the NFL doing enough for player safety? I think he said that, this is kind of a freak accident. There's really not much you can do in this case. Of course, we're going to avoid the medical side because we're not doctors, so we don't want to say something that would be false or anything like that. But, as of right now, this seemed like a freak accident. Obviously, concussions, CTE are very real dangers of the NFL, but this, I think it'll probably be a very, hopefully, isolated incident.
Yeah, and then, our condolences go out to Ken Block and his family. If you guys heard over the weekend, he was killed in a tragic snowmobile accident.
Mm-hmm.
And also the actor who plays Hawkeye.
Yeah, Jeremy Renner got messed up pretty bad from that, but he seems to be in better shape now. I know he posted on Instagram or Twitter or something. He's still pretty messed up. Obviously, you don't come out of an accident like that, totally fine, but he's doing better. So hopefully he makes a full recovery from that as well.
Yeah, I saw his post, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
What I heard, the most recent thing from the NFL is that they will continue the playoffs. They'll continue this weekend. The Bengals might just play the Ravens, which is their next scheduled opponent. And then for the playoffs, they'll have the NFC play, and the AFC will get a bye week while the Bengals play the Bills for that weekend. And then the AFC playoffs will happen the next weekend, the wild card playoff round, and then the NFC will get a bye. So, it'll be very different compared to any other NFL season. But then again, the 2020 sports season was also very unique and different, and they had to work around all that too. So it's going to be different, but that probably sounds like the best possible idea to continue on with the season and stuff.
I think we've said all that needs to be said, at least on our end.
Okay, and I think we're ready to start talking about Andrew Tate.
Oh boy.
Indeed.
All right, so Andrew Tate, we actually mentioned him a little bit when we were talking about cancel culture in the last episode. Some of us stated our varying opinions on him. I had a pretty negative opinion. I remember saying I don't think he should have been deleted off of or suspended off of Twitter, but I thought what he had to say was pretty idiotic, and listening to him outside of his TikToks was, I thought you sounded like an idiot to me. That's just me. But of course, was it last week? He was arrested in Romania for trafficking charges.
Yeah, and this resulted because of a pizza box in his video that identified something about his location and a alleged human trafficking ring running out of this pizza place or something. Basically like another Pizzagate, kinda. And this was all after his ridiculous online spat with Greta Thunberg. So I don't know why this grown man is arguing with a teenage girl online.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, is what it is.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, I saw one on Twitter right before he got arrested. It's I'm not sure who it was. It was maybe a fan or maybe his friend or something. He's jokingly said, "Why don't you guys just fuck already?" And then he said in reply, "She ain't ready yet."
Oh
Dear
man,
God.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah, this guy's boy, he's something. He's a piece of work. So my opinion of the guy right now isn't very high. Not a very good opinion of him, but that being said, some of you guys might find this controversial, but I think that he is entitled to a fair trial like anybody else who's accused of a crime like this, especially a crime as severe as this. And I'm just going to say it. If he's guilty, I hope he gets punished as he should be. And if he's innocent, then he's innocent,
Yeah, I would at least certainly rather be innocent until proven guilty than be treated as guilty until proven innocent. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I think best course of action is going to be to avoid anything related to Andrew Tate like the plague from here on out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Was his Twitter account suspended again? I don't know. I haven't heard about that. Did Elon Musk just pulled the trigger once again? I know he reinstated it, but is it gone again? I haven't looked at that.
I don't know. I haven't
No
looked into
idea.
it.
I'll have to check that. Just today, I'm reading this. His cars, 11 of his cars were seized by the Romanian officials based on the charges as well. So he's being held up in Romania still in custody. I guess now we're going to see what the charges are going to be, or if these allegations are true or not, and what's up with the guy.
I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, from what I've heard, this isn't the first time he's been arrested for this kind of thing. So, I mean, he wasn't convicted that time either. So, I don't know. On the one hand, he wasn't convicted of that, so he might be innocent of this. But on the other hand, that's really not the kind of thing that you get arrested for twice without there being some level of truth to it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think based on that, he's going to be found guilty as a result of this.
Mm-hmm. And then if
The Matrix this, the Matrix that.
Oh, yeah.
Just that could play a factor in it a little bit, but at the end of the day, make better decisions, my guy. The Matrix didn't force you to make a 5-minute video over, a response to Greta Thunberg, and you kind of just dug yourself in a hole there. Top G.
Yeah.
Arguing with a 19 or 20-year-old on Twitter.
Yeah.
And getting butt hurt that she. What was the email address that she used?
It's small dick.
Yeah, small dick energy.
Yeah, small dick energy.
Who
Yeah.
cares? .com.
Something like that.
It's dude, if you really get triggered over that, I don't have that much respect for you anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a alpha male move.
Yeah, it's not.
No, that's a bottom G move is what that is.
That's very true.
Now, what do you guys think about his brother, Tristan?
Tristan. I don't know much about the guy, so you're going to have to fill me in there.
From what I've seen so far, he seems to be a little bit more collected and cool-headed. I don't know if he is also involved in all these allegations, but he seems to be a bit more level-headed than Andrew is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I remember reading that he was involved in this newest human trafficking thing, but even so, aside from the Tate brothers, I don't think people should be seen as guilty just by association, just because they're related to somebody. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if he's found guilty, should all of his content be deleted? So all of his TikToks, all of his past stuff?
They're a private business, so they can do what they want as they see fit with that. But I would say probably not. I mean, unless these TikToks and such were directly, condoning this kind of thing, or directly related to it, just because somebody goes to prison for something doesn't mean you just scrub their existence off the planet.
Mm-hmm. That's true. What's his business, like Hustle University? Is that it?
Hustlers University.
Hustlers University.
Yeah, his whole thing is teaching beta males how to be alphas. That's not really something you can do, though, is it? Because you're either an alpha or you're not. So
The whole thing is so cringeworthy.
Yeah.
It's like, just go out and be a man.
Yeah,
It's that
exactly.
simple.
yeah, just be a normal guy. Crazy thought, I know. Just act like a normal person.
Exactly. I don't think there's a pill. There's no secret to it. It's like,
Yeah, just like there's no secret trying to get Cameron to go talk to girls.
man, that's a beta move right there. You just sign up for Hustlers University.
Yeah, you're Andrew Tate's target demographic right now.
Oh, man.
It's like, I'm scared to talk to the girls on Tinder.
Andrew Tate, the bald fuck comes in.
Okay,
It's like,
so from Andrew Tate somehow onto the roast of Cameron.
I don't think that's the play, Chief.
I mean, his TikTok, like I watch his TikToks and I watch like his podcasts and shows and stuff. I mean, his TikToks, I mean, it's like some average stuff. I don't think it was like anything special. But, I mean, like when he does podcasts and stuff, like it seems like he plays a character. Like he always has his shades on. He's always like trying to act up as this like alpha guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's probably how he acts most of the time, but it's like, I think women. I don't know. I don't think that's
Probably for the best.
We don't want to hear your thoughts on women, Jared.
So I mean, but then again, I mean, if these charges are true, maybe that's how he acts and all the time. So I don't know the guy personally, but just what I've seen from him, I think he plays a character. We'll have to see where that goes from there. Again, still kind of an ongoing development at the moment. Tristan was involved in this. He was arrested with Andrew. So, again, I mean, like we all said, I mean, innocent until proven guilty. Give him a fair trial, and if he's proven true, or if these charges are proven to be true, then, of course, I mean, he gets charged accordingly to it.
I think there are better male role models that you can look up to
Yes.
than him in either case. So you should probably look elsewhere for your strong male influence than this dude.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. To that dog. Shut the fuck up. I'm trying to record a podcast. Alright, so this last
Damn it.
It's like when your phone goes off in the middle of class and everyone looks at you. It's like, oh God, what have I done?
And that's why I always keep my phone on silent.
You've alerted the herd.
It was my freshman year. I was in math class, and I guess my phone, I had headphones plugged in. That was back when I had 3.5 millimeter ports. And I guess I had like really loud music playing like through my headphones the whole time in my pocket. And it was during a math test. After we got done with the test, somebody sat here and was like, your phone's been playing really loud music through your headphones the whole time, right? It's like, no, it hasn't.
It's happened to me too. I was trying to listen to Marty Robbins.
Dude, I just remember the time you kept playing Big Iron when we went on our trip to Gatlinburg. It's like you spanned that for like half an hour at this mountaintop.
It was a good song to play on the mountains.
Well, I think the mountains suck.
Yeah, I actually had a similar incident. Remember Mr. Wojtowicz?
Yep. Student
Yeah.
top for him last quarter.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
I remember when he was my teacher back in, what was it, 7th grade?
Grade.
I think on the first day of class with him, I remember kind of subconsciously humming a tune that I found catchy, and he basically picked it up, and I was like, oh shit, was I really doing that the whole time?
So, reading a book in his class once while he was teaching. He didn't like that, so he grabbed my book out of my hands and threw it on the ground and flipped it over. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I shouldn't be doing that.
Is that it? Is that all he said? Or did he say anything?
He yelled at me about it
Oh.
in front of everyone.
Classic. I love the guy. I mean,
But one time he took me and some other people out in the hallway to yell at us, and he just like talked to us. I was like, "Don't do what you did."
yeah,
It's like, okay,
he's got to make a show.
yeah,
It's all part of the strategy.
yeah,
I mean, you can't get away with, like, even like back then, you can't get away with some of this stuff anymore. Like, I mean, he's toned it down a lot. Like, you can, what? You can't, like, yell at them anymore. I mean, because parents, they'll tell their parents.
Yeah.
The parents, of course, will call and complain. So it's like,
just tell the parents to shut up.
now the administration sides with the parents.
Well, you tell the
usually.
administration to shut up too.
Tell your boss.
Just let me do my fucking job. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. I wish. All right. Yeah, I guess we can
Let's
roll into it.
pick it up where we left off.
All right. Yeah. So it's the second half here. We just wanted to discuss 2023, just our predictions. Of course, it's gonna be broad. Now, Ash and I, we want to focus on more of the geopolitical events coming into this year. The Russia-Ukraine war still in full swing. At least last I saw, recent headlines stating that looks like Russia is preparing for another full-scale offensive once again. So maybe, I guess, in preparation for kind of the anniversary of when this war starts, since that's coming up in February. China, Taiwan, I'm still seeing the same things. China just kind of poking around Taiwan. Of course, they haven't changed any of their stance regarding that.
West Taiwan.
West Taiwan poking around Taiwan a little too aggressively. And then North Korea, Rocket Man over there, still launching his rockets at the ocean. Hates Atlantis, I guess. Hates fish. And just killing all those poor creatures in the ocean.
Yeah, unless the West Taiwanese illegal fishing gets to them first.
Right. Then we have Iran as well. I mean, they're helping Russia out, sending them supplies, drones. I mean,
And recently, I think they actually started sending them ballistic missiles.
yeah, I saw that as well. And of course, Belarus also's involvement. I think we talked about that either episode 4 or 5. About,
Yeah, we talked about it in episode 5 of
Five.
the previous season.
Okay, yeah. So I'm still seeing some stuff, headlines popping up about more Belarusian involvement, and if it is possible that they would get involved.
But yeah, like as we kind of established last time, it's a stupid idea for them if they do go through with it. But there's also the situation between Serbia and Croatia that flared up that's been starting to flare up a little bit during our little break.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what I've pieced together between Serbia and Croatia, as well as many of the other former Yugoslav states, Serbia is kind of in a similar position as to Russia in that Serbia is basically kind of the successor state to what was once a much larger nation,
Right.
trying to reclaim some of that former glory. And it's part of that thinking which kind of led to the absolute, I guess, mess of a situation in 1999 which prompted NATO intervention, Operation Allied Force. Now, as of now, I don't really see anything, I guess, major coming up to it. Maybe at worst, a couple skirmishes between both sides, forces that they've begun deploying there, but I don't really think it's going to escalate too much unless something drastic happens. That's it. That's something I figure can go either way. As for the Russo-Ukraine war, I kind of want to state that right off the bat regarding that. Looking back, it's amazing to think at how wrong we were when we first thought, when this first happened, everything that we thought about how Russia, that we used to, I think a lot of us, myself, Jared included, we used to kind of view Russia as like most other people, kind of viewed it as basically a dominant military power in Eastern Europe that still holds on to kind of that Soviet strength.
Yeah.
Now, after a lot of the faults have been revealed as a result of Ukraine, it's kind of like they're really just a dying empire at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of informs me of what my predictions on what's going to happen with the Russo-Ukraine war going into 2023. I want to say this straight off the bat that I don't really know any sort of definitive timeline as to when this war is going to end, whether it's going to happen in this year or the next year. But I will say this. I'm confident at this point that Ukraine is going to be the one to win this war at this rate. Mm-hmm. Considering that a lot of Russia's first-rate troops have been severely battered and depleted over the course of the past year or so, and they've lost a lot of equipment, and they've been trying to rely more and more on these mobilized soldiers, which have little more than abbreviated training. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the kind of blowback the Russians got when that mobilization was announced back in September as a result of the Kharkiv counteroffensive. Not to mention, early on, I know that when Russia started sustaining heavy casualties, they began to cannibalize some of their training units, their experienced trainers, to try and make up for the numbers before this mobilization call went out. Mm-hmm. And now that's starting to kind of come back to bite them. Because now they have no way of recouping any first-rate units so long as this war continues on.
Right.
And so long as support from the West keeps flowing, Ukraine's going to win this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say anything that will retread. I know we talked about this before, the war in general. I think back like last season, episode 2, I believe, is when we discussed it. So just predicting if the war ends this year or not, I'll see. It's hard to say. It's like, I mean, obviously from what Putin has said, Russia said, I mean, they're not changing their goals. They want those 4 annexed territories as part of any peace deal, which Ukraine and the West are not going to give to Russia. So it really just depends on Russia how long they want to keep dragging this thing out. So
yeah,
I think it'll probably go on to next year as well, is my guess.
Yeah. Something else I want to tack on now that I think about it is that I have seen some projections by the Ukrainian MOD on how they are planning on retaking Crimea this year. Mm-hmm. I will say that I think those might be a bit optimistic, considering that for the outside of like the Kharkiv counteroffensive, much of this whole war in Ukraine's been kind of like it's honestly been a lot reminiscent of the First World War, especially if you look around places like Bakhmut. It's kind of like basically a World War I style fight with modern equipment.
Right.
But I do think that Ukraine will come up with a plan to get it. But I do think it's kind of optimistic that they might be able to retake it this year.
Yeah.
But something else that I think bears worth mentioning is that even if Ukraine this year or sometime later manages to push Russia out of all the territories that are internationally recognized as Ukrainian, so pushing them out of Donetsk, pushing them out of Luhansk, out of Kherson, out of Crimea, out of Zaporizhia, even if every single square inch of Ukrainian territory is retaken to where the border is basically pre-2014, my main concern is that Russia is still not going to give in there and will basically resort to a prolonged artillery and airstrike campaign to try and break the Ukrainian will until they basically have nothing left to throw at it.
Right. And as I've said this in the past too, the longer this war drags on, the greater the risk of outside involvement of the West getting involved as well, whether it's a accident, whether it's on purpose. I mean, we started this podcast covering that story about that Polish missile incident. That was an accident, or seemed to have been an accident, but still, like, it wouldn't surprise me if we see more things like that happen throughout this year as this war continues to drag on.
Yeah. Admittedly, the risk will start getting lower and lower as Russian forces are pushed further and further east.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, with things like caliber KH-101s, the risk will always be there given the sheer range of those things.
Right. Okay.
And I think as for the whole Taiwan issue,
Yeah.
I'm thinking as time goes on, we're going to see the risk of a flashpoint at that point of the world and we're going to see the risk of that increase further and further as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Especially nowadays, since recently I think China, or West Taiwan if you prefer, having basically sent its largest force of aircraft across the Taiwan Straits in recent years. I think that's only going to keep growing and growing. Even more so now that we're seeing a renewed COVID outbreak in China.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like their zero COVID policy doesn't work? Amazing.
Well, here's the thing, though. They recently just lifted the zero COVID restrictions and are basically telling their population to get back to work.
Yeah, it was actually like literally right after we talked about zero COVID and all the protests. Like I think a couple days after we posted that episode, that's when they started lifting restrictions. So maybe they gave away to some of the pressure of the protesters.
Well, I think what's going to happen is the CCP is going to blame the protesters for the recent outbreak of COVID across the Chinese mainland because in many ways the zero COVID policy was basically keeping a lid on what was really an unstable pressure cooker because by resorting to these sorts of draconian zero COVID policies, the Chinese people haven't really developed the kind of natural immunity to COVID-19 as other nations have.
Right.
Not to mention Chinese vaccines are inferior to, say, Moderna and Pfizer.
Yeah.
It really means that it was kind of an outbreak waiting to happen once the zero COVID was lifted. But now that that's starting to come back and basically make China's already precarious economic situation even worse,
Right.
I do think that the potential risk of a war over Taiwan is greater now than previously. I still hope that it doesn't happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if it does happen sometime in April or October when the weather patterns permit amphibious operations. I mean, I do expect China to lose a war over Taiwan simply because amphibious operations are hard and almost certainly US, Japan, and Australia are going to get involved and help defend Taiwan. But that is something to keep an eye out for.
Right.
But if there's another thing that Ukraine showed is that in this day and age, it's almost impossible to keep a sneak attack a secret.
Okay.
So we're going to see it building up if it does come to that.
Yes. So you think, yes, this year China will most likely make a move on Taiwan?
Potentially.
Potentially. If you give it a percentage, what would you say?
Hard to say. I'd say roughly... I don't want to say give a definitive answer, but maybe at this point 50-50.
50-50. I'll just say yes, and hopefully I'm wrong if we come back to the end of the year and they haven't done anything.
Well,
just based on behavior and their economic situation, I'm not sure it'll be a full-on attack, but I think they'll do something this year.
Yeah, but I think the most risk right now, given the amount of aerial incursions that's been happening, is most likely there's going to be a skirmish between the PLAAF and the Taiwanese Air Forces.
Yes.
Similar to like the second Taiwan Strait crisis in the late 50s.
Yep.
So that'll definitely be something to watch out for.
Yes, exactly. All right, so how about our own internal U.S. affairs? So obviously inflation's still a problem.
Technically it's a problem for the rest of the world as well, but...
gas prices, I mean, it went down to, at least here, it went down to I saw 250 at one point. That was right by Christmas, but now it's going back up again. It's at 329 last I checked in the station near here. So hopefully it stays at least at that level. I mean, $3 is still expensive, but
For afterwards.
Sorry, but you showed me a computer built inside of a tire.
let's talk about the computer.
Look at this. That one is inside of a stuffed beaver.
All right,
All right.
What were you talking about?
join us for
gas,
US.
gas prices.
We're
US
talking about
internal.
predictions for
In the
2023.
U.S. So I was talking about gas prices. I remember when they went up to like 509 in March. I was like, oh, god damn, this is the highest I've ever seen it in my life. And now it's been fluctuating. Went back down to 250, which is that's perfectly fine. And now it's going back up again. So big question is, how's our economy going to handle? So come on, what are you, a marketing major? You probably should know a little bit about economics. Are we going into a recession? Because they keep skirting around recession. I keep hearing the major economics saying there's going to be a recession.
Yes, we've been in one for like 6 months.
They keep
Thank you
changing
for noticing.
They keep changing the definition.
Yeah,
And our politicians are saying
they
that.
do that about a lot of things,
That's
not just recessions. They want to change the definition of a lot of things, but yeah, I mean, based on every traditional piece of knowledge we have, this is absolutely a recession, and we've been in one for a while, and hopefully it'll get better. I guess we'll find out. The gas prices are, in my opinion, pretty unacceptable. I went up to Michigan this past Friday, and I'm glad I did then rather than now, because the gas prices are like way higher now than they were then. Like not way higher, but enough to make a difference.
Yeah, I'll have to talk with because my uncle works for. My uncle works at Nintendo. My uncle does actually work.
My uncle's Bill Gates.
My uncle does work for a gas company, though, so I have to ask
Can you get him to
about
lower the
price.
prices?
Yeah, please. So
At first it's like locomotive, and then
that's my other uncle who works for a local. I just have connections. Important.
whenever the
industry.
current topic is true, it's like, I have an uncle for that.
I have an uncle for that. I have an uncle who's a general. No, but yeah, seriously. So hopefully they go down. I mean, it's been fluctuating. Hopefully they stay at 329 or whatever it is right now, and they don't go higher than that. But we shall see. Are we going to be able to pull ourselves out of recession this year? Is the big question.
This can't be real.
Probably. Probably not this year, but I mean, hopefully we start to dig our way out of it.
Yeah.
With the gas prices going back down, it feels like we kind of hit the lowest this is going to get. But then again, the gas prices did only go down because we started releasing a bunch of the emergency reserves. So
Yeah, but
I
this
don't
is
know.
all like kind of surface level still, right? Like, yeah, inflation is through the roof, but that doesn't mean anything, right? All across the country, right? I think we were talking last night how out in California, fast food workers are making like 22 to 24 an hour.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is devaluing the currency. Yes, it is. But I think the bigger point here is that both the federal government and large corporations have us exactly where they want us. Like, barely enough income to survive, zero savings, yet increasing their margins bit by bit to suck every dollar out of our pockets that they possibly can.
yeah, I'm just going to say it. I think that trickle down economics, trickle down economics is a scam. It works if you make it work, but if you don't have any legislation that like forces the people at the top to pass down a decent share, and I don't know what a decent share would be, that's not really up to me to decide, but unless you force them to do that, they're not going to. So
Companies need to, I'm talking major corporations, not small businesses, not mom and pop shops, not even small to medium sized businesses, but large multinational conglomerates need to decrease their margins. And I think the FTC really needs to step in and file some antitrust lawsuits against a lot of these big companies.
Yeah.
So all they're doing is just extracting every single cent they can from the working class and the middle class. Because really, there's no middle class anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You look out there, it is just diminished to kind of a point of no return.
Yeah.
Where's Theodore Roosevelt when you need him?
Exactly. Bring him back. Bring back his policies.
And I know that sounds like pretty anti-Republican, right? Saying like, oh, you need to like cut your margins. But as my grandfather used to say, pigs can pass, hogs get slaughtered, which is up to a point. Yes, make your money, do good, but you can make your money. You can't just constantly take advantage of people, and that's all that they're doing now.
Yeah.
Right. And I think another part of the problem is that companies are raising their wages because people are done working for peanuts, and the companies are realizing this. But other companies, or even the same companies, are saying, hey, everyone's making more money. Let's raise our prices. So nothing changes, right? If you were making $5 before, and just as an example, a McDonald's meal was $10. Now you're making $10. Well, your McDonald's meal is $20. So nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the fact is companies are purposefully overcharging for their goods and services because the economy relies on them and people must buy it.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason gas and electricity has to be this expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, a lot of it is with Biden and his push for green energy, shutting down a lot of the coal plants, trying to make more electricity come from green sources, which is great. I'm all for green energy, but he's not doing it in the proper way, and it's just messing with the supply and demand.
Right.
Right. You got to set up the infrastructure to support green energy first.
Exactly.
You can't shut down what we have now and then say, oh, I'm going to put in green energy and fix it all. And you don't have the infrastructure set up for it.
Sorry, everyone, that you're paying, 50 to 75% more or higher for it just because, I felt like doing it on a whim. Like, you're welcome. It's like, dude, set it up properly. Make it a slow and gradual transition. You'll probably have a better rollout.
Yeah, and even before all the Russo-Ukraine stuff, gas prices were rising. That's a fact. It's on log. You can see the rise in different various charts. Of course, they spiked way up when the war started, and a couple months following after, then they kind of went back down. Just kind of fluctuated from there, but they were definitely on the way up. Also a lot of that because of his policies.
Let's be honest. They were going to go up anyway. They just saw the war happening and said, hey, we can capitalize on that.
Of course.
Let's jack it up sooner.
Right, and that's the whole conspiracy. I guess you can call it a conspiracy with, because, gas prices, remember, during the COVID shutdowns were like $1. So those gas companies were definitely not gaining a lot of money or profit from that. So, you can make the argument they were definitely price gouging and took advantage of the situation. We'll wrap things up here. Just go around predictions overall for the year in general. Hopefully for me personally and for all of us here and everybody listening, it's a good year personally. Going out, finding new things, getting the new hobbies, just having fun, and of course learning a lot more as well, achieving whatever goals you have. World-wise, we're still in pretty tense times right now. Since 2020, it's been kind of a bizarro decade. I think that's probably not. It's going to keep continuing into 2023. COVID, I keep hearing that pop up again. It's never going to go away at this point. And now really is. We're kind of like at a tent, like a rubber band, just keeps stretching out. It's like, when's the breaking point? I feel like it's going to happen sometime this decade. I'm not sure this year specifically. Obviously, again, that war's still going on. I think something is going to snap possibly this year, but I think definitely this decade.
The government's real good at stretching that rubber band as far as it'll go and then letting it snap back.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I certainly feel that, especially in regards to what you were saying earlier. I feel it's things like the economy are going to get worse before they ultimately get better.
Biden's not going to do anything to help.
Damn.
It's honestly
Agreed.
true. Like,
I don't want to get on the watch. We're already on the watch list at this point. I don't want to be a
Still, like I said, I feel it's going to get worse before it ultimately starts getting better.
Yeah. I'm on the watch list and I'm proud. Fuck it.
That's all for today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Current Case for updates and exclusive shorts throughout the week. And if you like what you hear, feel free to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/current_case. This has been the Current Case Podcast. Thanks for listening.
you want to record that just a little bit slower this
Oh
time?
my god, bro.
Just slightly. This is like the stuff you're trying to fit in at the end of the commercial.
Okay. Okay.